Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Maple Conservative Girl podcast. My name is Danica, and today I want to talk about how Mark Carney is promising billions in new investment and a stronger Canadian economy, but many Canadians are just wondering why life just keeps getting more expensive. I'll break down the government's latest investment announcements, take a look at controversial legislation that one might say expands government control over speech. There's Pierre Poilievre challenging the Liberal record on affordability and economic growth, and another new housing plan that raises questions about whether taxpayers are picking up the tab for unsold condos. So if you like this episode, please share, subscribe, and let's get right into it. So one of the biggest headlines coming out of the G7 summit was Mark Carney's announcement that Canada has secured 13 new deals that would supposedly unlock more than $5 billion in investment. Now, before we even begin, for context, $5 billion is equal to 2 days worth of cross-border trade with the United States. 2 days. But we're really diversifying, and maybe one could even say replacing trade with America.
We have learned that Canada is resilient in these respects. In spite of everything, Quebec is deeply affected by the trade war with the U.S., but we have managed to pivot. We have managed to replace our exports to the U.S. With exports to other European countries, and it's the same thing for Quebec. So our companies have taken charge. They have taken advantage of the opportunities we've given them, and this is good news, Mr. Speaker.
That is Nathalie Provost, who is straight up lying. We have not replaced America with Europe. We have not pivoted. Not in the slightest. They're making it sound like they're pivoting and working hard to pivot and diversify, but everything's getting worse. But anyways, when we hear that headline, what do Canadians naturally think? Because it sounds like Carney is saying that $5 billion is coming into Canada. So Canadians, when they hear an announcement like this, they think contracts were signed. They think money has been committed. They think factories are about to be built and jobs are about to be created. That's certainly how the announcement was presented to us. But once you actually dig into the details, it is not at all the way they make it sound. Because these are not 13 deals worth $5 billion coming into Canada. They're 13 partnerships, MOUs, investment frameworks, relationships that the government say could eventually lead to more than $5 billion in investment. That is exactly what this government always does. Just announcements and MOUs, nothing concrete. And I think Canadians deserve to understand the difference between an actual investment and an MOU or a partnership. So let's say I announce that I'm partnering with a major home builder to develop a housing project. Does that mean that the houses have been built? Does it mean that the money has been spent? Does it even mean that the project is guaranteed to go through and be completed? No, not at all. It means that we started a process. Always just a process, right? Like that's essentially what many of Carney's announcements are. Potential, possibility, future opportunity, not guaranteed investment. And here's the question nobody in the media seems interested in asking. Where exactly is the $5 billion? Seriously, show Canadians the breakdown. Show us project number 1. We want to see project number 1. How much money is attached? How much has actually been committed? How much depends on permits? How much depends on financing? How much depends on government subsidies? How much are we going to pay for this? Where are the details? Yet to be announced. They don't want us to see the details because they're probably pathetic. We're being asked to accept a very large number without seeing the math behind it, and we're supposed to cheer for something yet to be put into place concretely. And we've seen this movie before, haven't we? Like, they love investments, they love press releases, they love standing in front of the microphone talking about billions and billions of dollars. But the reality is that it's all for show, right? It's an illusion, just like Pierre Poilievre says it is. Who cares about an announcement? We care about the build. When will it be built? Like, he's so vague in his announcements. And by the way, a significant portion of these announcements are directly connected to the energy transition, EV supply chains, battery materials, and low-carbon industrial policy. We see what they're doing here. and we don't want it. Stop shoving net zero down our throats. Like, you all know how I feel about net zero. I feel like it enriches the elites invested in net zero, like our own prime minister, and impoverishes the little people because net zero is expensive. Canada already has a long history, on top of this, of major projects that get announced and then spend years trapped in like this regulatory limbo. Mines that never open, pipelines that never get built, factories that never break ground, investment that never materializes, and projects like Alta, where the executives get major bonuses with nothing to show for it. And that's why conservatives like me tend to be skeptical of these headline numbers. Not because we think that investment is bad or we don't want the prime minister to succeed. Of course, we want Canada to succeed. That's why we want Pierre Poilievre as our prime minister. Because we don't think that the Liberals are able to do this. We don't think partnerships are bad either. But the announcements that they make, that's the easy part, right? And they just want to look good on stage so that people can say, oh, wow, 13 new deals. Woohoo! Like, Mark Carney is an amazing prime minister. He's respected all over the world. He's got a strong, steady hand. Like, get a deal with America. And then maybe I'll find some ounce of respect within myself for this government. Mark Carney spent much of this trip talking about middle powers, building new alliances, creating new economic relationships, finding a third path. And now suddenly we're told that these new partnerships are going to unlock $5 billion. And maybe they will. I genuinely hope they do. Like, Canada desperately needs investment and productivity growth, and we desperately need resource development. So yeah, I hope this does materialize into something of value. But let's be honest about what we're looking at here. These are not 13 signed checks. These are 13 projects that may attract investment if everything goes according to plan. And that's a big difference. And I think the government knows that it's a big difference. That's why their wording matters. Notice that they didn't say $5 billion has been invested or committed. They said that partnerships will unlock investments. Unlock. That's one of those political words that sounds really impressive while revealing absolutely nothing. What does unlock mean? Next year? 5 years from now? 10 years from now? Under what conditions? With what guarantees? And nobody seems very eager to answer those questions or even ask the prime minister those questions, right? Like, let's get real here. While the Liberals cheer for Carney's greatness at unlocking $5 billion, potentially, we Conservatives know that if Canada's economy is going to become less dependent on the United States, as Carney seems to suggest, then $5 billion is not anywhere near what we need. It's not enough. Canada's economic relationship with America is measured in hundreds of billions of dollars, not five, hundreds of billions of dollars. And I think that he should be focused on getting a deal with America. Even if every dollar of this investment materializes, and that's a big if, it still doesn't fundamentally change Canada's economic reality. Like the United States, that's what we need. We need to work on our relationship with the United States. Diversification can come second, but priority number one should be working with America. I say it literally every single episode. They are our largest trading partner and our most important, by far, economic partnership. And this is a government that is not focused on the things that would actually bring prosperity to this country. They're not focused on our economy, on our recession. They're not focused on opening our resources and making Canada not only wealthy, but be able to have leverage going into negotiations with America. Right now, Carney has not made leverage. Like, we're in a bad place. Like, even if they say that we're in a good place, we're not. Like, objectively speaking, we are not. They can look at stats all day, but we feel it. It's us that's living it. This government is focused on the wrong things. While Canadians are literally losing their homes, living in tents in mass numbers, losing their jobs as companies bleed down to America. Elbows up. The Carney government is focused on narratives, on middle powers, on MOUs and third paths and strategic partnerships and global alliances. But Canadians, forget about that. Canadians shouldn't judge governments on any of these vague things that are not actually tangible. They should judge governments on results. And the government is not producing the results that Canadians need right now. Did the investment arrive? Did the jobs get created? I mean, Mark Carney said that Canadians will judge him by the price at the grocery store. Groceries are more expensive today than they were a year ago. And we feel it. And they're trying to tell us that it's not true. What we're feeling is not real. Under this leadership, did Canadians become more prosperous? Will this even remotely lift us even an inch out of this recession? $5 billion. Whoop-de-doo. Until we actually build Canada strong, until we actually get investments and jobs and building mines and factories opening and investment coming into Canada, until Canadians become more prosperous, this $5 billion announcement is basically just trust us, We promise that things are going to turn around soon. This is just we're going down before we get up. Everything's going to be okay. We're just in a technical recession, not a real recession. It's not a real recession. Don't worry. I will believe them when I see it, which I don't think will be happening considering it's been a year, 11 years, but a year under Mark Carney, and our economy is devastatingly embarrassing. And on top of all this...
or Canada.
How long do you hope USMCA negotiations or review go on?
Well, it's not something that's, to me, I think it's better without it. I mean, to be honest with you. I'm not a big fan of it. I liked it because it got us out of NAFTA. In other words, after 6 years, you had a clause that got us out of NAFTA. That's the thing I liked about it most. We do better without an agreement.
Do you want to just leave it enrolling?
I would rather leave it unsigned. I'd rather have it terminated.
You'd rather have it terminated? Well, those are different things, sir. I just want to be clear.
I would rather not have the agreement, but I may sign it.
Right.
But I would rather, we do better as a country if we don't have an agreement.
So are you thinking of...
Yeah, I'm thinking about maybe we won't be able to make a deal. I would rather not have the USMCA. The primary reason I wanted it was because there was no way out of NAFTA, which was the worst trade agreement ever made, ever. And they had no termination. And it was very hard to get USMCA for that reason. And I had a 6-year clause. Who would have thought I would have been here in the 6 years? They got it 6 years because they hoped I wouldn't be here. My term was supposed to be over with. So on top of everything else it comes to, I would prefer not having an agreement, but I'm open to doing it. We'll see what happens.
So as of now, it's just going to stick around for 10 years. You're okay
We're
with
not,
that?
no, it's not sticking around. It'll be terminated. In other words,
after a decade.
It expires.
Yeah, in a decade.
It expires. I prefer that. I view it as possibly expiring immediately.
It almost feels like the Liberals want this to be terminated so that they can continue to blame Trump for their failures. Who cares about him? I don't care about Trump and what he's doing. I care about what our Prime Minister is doing to regulate that relationship and make a good deal. Who cares if we don't like him? He's the leader of the most powerful country, and he's right beside us. He's our biggest trading partner. Too bad if you don't like him. Reality says that we need to work with him. It's the Liberals' fault that Canada is where it is today. And they're just always gaslighting us.
Prime Minister ends his third session. I ask you a question. Are your groceries, your gas, your mortgage payments more affordable than they were a year ago? Are your streets more safe, or are they more riddled with crime? Aside from his endless announcements, excuses, and promises, this Prime Minister has doubled the deficit, increased housing costs, home building is actually down, gas, groceries, and mortgage payments nearing record highs. So will the Prime Minister put aside the illusions and stand up in this House of Commons now and defend his disastrous results?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Well, Mr. Speaker,
Speaker, we are at the end of a session, and I wish the Leader of the Opposition, his colleagues, and obviously his family restful summer, as I wish to all my colleagues on this side of the House. I do want to point out, Mr. Speaker, that we are finishing one of the most productive legislative sessions in recent history. 21 bills have become law through this chamber. The largest criminal justice reform passed in the history of Canada. Liberals are the law and order party now, and we have put in place a series of measures to make life easier and more affordable for Canadians. We're not stopping there. We're going to continue the work. We're going to build Canada strong, and we're going to make this country proud.
We are doing so much, everybody. We've done this and we've done that. We're the law and order party now and put in measures to make Canadians better off. We're not stopping. We're going to continue doing the best job ever. We are so amazing. It is so delusional. It is just like, it is incomprehensible to me that this man can stand up and gaslight us like as if our eyes don't work, right? As if we can't see and feel the hardships, as if we aren't lined up at the food banks and working 3 jobs, losing our jobs, as if we can't feel the pain in our wallet when groceries for 3 days cost $200. They never take responsibility. They're going to build Canada strong. Please. They're not building anything.
No, we do not plan a restful summer. We plan all summer long to fight against the liberal recession, liberal inflation, rising liberal cost of living, and the rising liberal crime crisis in our streets. Take, for example, investment. This liberal prime minister promised he would increase it. He's delivered 5 consecutive quarters of declining investment. This is the only G7 country who has done that. One of the reasons why our country is in a recession that means paychecks down and the cost of living up. So will the Canadian people deserve accountability and results? Will the Prime Minister stand and deliver both now?
Exactly. They don't do anything. The Prime Minister doesn't show up to the House of Commons because he's at a press conference giving yet another housing announcement that will do nothing, which I'll talk about later, but they don't work for Canadians. They can't wait to go home and have that restful summer, while Conservatives, they're working their butt off, not only to oppose the government, but through this fake majority, they are trying to pass really draconian laws, and we're in a recession. Bill C-9, the anti-H-word law. Bill C-22, the legal access law, where they want to force internet providers to maintain metadata for 1 year and eases CSIS and police to access your data without a warrant. And Bill C-34, the Digital Security Act, which is basically centralized censorship in the name of child protection.
But I actually want to talk about what happened this week, because I think it feeds into a possible problem that the Liberals need to be attuned to. Last week, Michael Sabia, speaking at the Eurasia Group, this is the clerk of the Privy Council, talked about one of the things the Carney government has that's an asset, which is trust from the public. What happened this week is that the Liberals decided to use their majority to shut down debate and pass legislation that is very controversial, bills that were not studied, in some cases had no witnesses that even testified as to whether this was good or bad. We had the lawful access bill that has gotten a bit more attention across the country. And the government completely shut down the debate. In some cases, they even backdated the ability of opposition members to bring forward amendments, so only government members could bring forward amendments. We have never seen anything like this, ever. We have talked a lot about these kind of moves during the Harper era, especially during his majority government, and with reason. I think we deserve to talk and highlight what is happening in this case. And I bring it up because the trust issue. The government House leader talked about, he hoped the conspiracies around C-22, the lawful access bill, would just go away, that time would allow these to pass. He talked about tinfoil hat people. This is not a way to bring people along. Okay. If anything, it fuels conspiracies. So there was no reason to pass these bills. They could have taken the summer to study them and bring more Canadians on side. And I think that they are they risk taking, I should say, Canadians' votes for granted. Okay. Right now the vote is parked in the very same way that Pierre Poilievre's vote was parked, because people don't like the other options. So I think they need to be sensitive to this.
Okay, so let's hear from everyone else then. Chantal? I agree that it's unprecedented to find the government using its newly found majority not obtained at the polls to speed up or force feed 9 bills through the House of Commons.
You have Rosemary trying to cut her off, moving on, and then Chantal is like, yes, I agree. They have this majority that they manufactured, and now they're shoving 9 bills through Parliament without debate. Even the CBC is calling out these controversial bills being pushed through Parliament, shutting down debate, no amendments by the opposition. They can't believe that their beloved party is doing this, right? Like, they have an authoritarian streak. She said it herself. Althea Raj said it herself.
So let me ask you in sort of the most understandable terms possible, because this is a very complex issue. So what I understand is that tech companies, and big ones, Google, Meta, Signal, some of them even threatening as a result of this legislation to pull out of this country altogether, say that the regime that you have proposed essentially could open the door to they call it a back door to, the idea of encryption. So the idea that my communication is actually safe and actually private, an end run around that, which means that encryption no longer exists. How do you respond to that? And again, how would you not have known that what you drafted here and the generalities that you use in some of the terminology would lead these companies to have this reaction?
So what I will say on encryption is that we will bring in amendments to ensure that encryption will not be compromised. So that will be clearly outlined in the bill.
What does that amendment look like? What does it? Because it's what they're saying is you're asking for system changes.
It's being drafted as I speak, but it will essentially satisfy the concerns that they have. I also want to say that there is no backdoor vehicle by which encryption could be compromised. That is not at all the intention, nor that's not what will happen.
So I believe these companies end up with the impression that that's the case.
I believe the amendment that we will put forward will clarify that. Why are companies responding in such a way? Look, we want to work with tech companies. I will also say that tech companies are resistant to any type of regulation. We're engaging them. We will set up an expert panel of sorts to ensure that as we build the regulations, we hear feedback from them and others, because it is not a matter of it's not an option for us not to have a lawful access regime. What we need to look at, Rashi, is as kids, for example, are using technology at a scale and pace that we've never seen before. As technology evolves, especially with AI, there is an absolute need for law enforcement to be able to keep up with the current trends and the current challenges.
I think that they're just focused on the wrong things. They want control so bad. They can't stand that people like you and me have access to the internet and can say what we want. These bills show exactly where their priorities are. And my hope is that this becomes an issue so big that it just can't go through, that Canadians are actually awake to what's happening. We don't want the government to be focusing their attention on this. Fix the economy, cut taxes, make the streets safer, and get out of our lives. The Conservatives will be working all summer long, I'm sure of it, because they believe in this country. They want to shift the focus away from the surveillance and censorship, anti-speech, towards what actually matters. We're in a recession. Canada's not doing good right now at all. And just look at Michelle Rampol-Garner versus Lena Diab. You can clearly see that Michelle knows what she's talking about. She understands her file, while Lena Diab can't even answer questions. Maybe that's because when the Liberals are all resting, the Conservatives are fighting for what's important to Canadians.
Come to the end of the session, you would expect a leader of the opposition to be a bit more cheerful, Mr. Speaker. Because in fact, they are good news, Mr. Speaker. If he wants to look at results, Canada is the second fastest growing economy in the G7, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have seen investment in machinery and equipment is up, Mr. Speaker. We have seen that business investment in intellectual property is up, Mr. Speaker. Instead of complaining, you should celebrate our workers, our industry, and Canada. Let's build Canada strong together, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
That's not just
just an illusion. That's a hallucination. The government's own statistical agency says the economy is shrinking. Yes. It shrunk this quarter, and it shrunk the quarter before that. In fact, it shrunk 3 out of the last 4 quarters. You can't be the second fastest growing when you are shrinking, as the Minister of Finance might appreciate and relate to, Mr. Speaker. So the question is for the Prime Minister, who's delivered the only recession in the G7 with consequences of higher costs for Canadians. Will he stand and defend the results instead of the...
Mr. Speaker, what an insult to the hard-working tradespeople and building unions across this country who've been standing with this government, fighting to build Canada strong, fighting to train their members and make sure more young people have great skilled jobs that pay fabulous wages, something I thought those guys were for, and vote against every single time. What an insult to the hard-working entrepreneurs across this country who have banded together to build up this country. Maybe they should stop talking down Canada.
Unbelievable. Each and every one of them are just the worst. Like, they all gaslight us. They all tell us that they're working for Canadians. We're the second fastest growing economy in the G7. That is a lie. Patty Haiju says that they all stand with industry workers and business owners. Do they? Because we don't have a deal with America where our industries are hurting. And instead of taking responsibility for their actions and making changes, they play the victim. Trump put tariffs on us. Yeah, so? What are you going to do about it? Their idea of fixing this situation is not a good idea. The industry leaders themselves have come out and said that they are the sacrificial lambs on the front lines of this trade war with America because we are so deeply integrated, and dealing with China or Europe will not solve the issue, and they've said it themselves. But instead, Melanie Joly is currently in China as part of a diplomatic and trade mission aimed at stabilizing economic relations and exploring new commercial opportunities in Asia. To diversify trade relationships and manage global economic risks while also maintaining strong ties with traditional partners like the United States. You should be exploring new commercial opportunities in America. I call BS. Canada's priority should remain strengthening North American trade relationships, especially in the auto sector where jobs are closely tied to U.S. market access and supply chains. Do you think that America will let anybody with a Chinese EV cross the border? Heck no! They have even confirmed that that won't happen. With Canada balancing economic engagement in Asia and trade dependence in the U.S., she should be in America. Oh, but Danica, it's not that easy to get a deal. Trump is just being super irrational. I am almost 100% certain that if Pierre Poilievre was in power today, we would have a trade deal in the works. He would use our resource sector as leverage. Canada would start looking a lot different than what it looks like now if Pierre Poilievre was in charge. But we don't have a new government. We have a new government with the same ideology as the last one, that are doing the same things, that drove us into the ground. We wouldn't be in a recession if Pierre Poilievre was in power. He would be himself down there negotiating with Trump. He has a plan, and it's a good plan. Meanwhile, the Liberal voters say that PP doesn't have a plan. I don't understand how they can say that, but okay, whatever.
Some of NATO's largest economies, some of our richest countries, allies that are happiest to go on about the rules-based international order and middle powers banding together still seem to think the era of free riding is here.
Calling out Mark Carney straight up, saying, hey, you want to band middle powers together and take advantage of us? No. This is not going to end well for us. It seems that they're literally intentionally tanking this country. And instead of going to the House of Commons, he's missed 100 sessions, by the way. Instead of showing up, where was Mark Carney? He was giving yet another housing announcement. How many housing announcements have there been since he became Prime Minister? And how's the housing crisis going for Canadians? Yeah, not good. Anyways, this is the announcement.
To bring down housing costs, and with the Premier, we're pleased to announce that Canada and British Columbia have reached a landmark new agreement to help build more homes, to bring down housing costs and modernize infrastructure across the province. We'll do this by working together to reduce development charges. We will convert vacant condos into affordable housing, and we will invest in community infrastructure from schools and hospitals to public transit. Now, I mentioned development charges. They're one of the biggest barriers to new homes. These are the fees that are charged to developers that help fund the infrastructure needed to support new housing. That means water mains, roads, parks, community facilities. Through the Build Communities Strong Fund, Canada will invest $1.6 billion in community infrastructure over the next decade. The BC government will match that investment. So that means $3.2 billion to finance the infrastructure communities need to support that housing, all while reducing municipal development charges that often get passed on to home buyers.
This is a bad plan. Like, this is just, it's not going to solve anything. This is just another subsidy. And haven't we heard something similar before? Do you think any of this will be getting done? Or is it just going to be money thrown to this program? Financing and support for converting vacant condos into affordable housing and broader plans to accelerate multi-unit construction. So basically, in British Columbia, some condo projects were built during the period of low interest rates and strong investor demand, and when rates rose and buyers disappeared, many units became harder to sell. So now governments are looking at acquiring or financing the acquisition of some of these vacant condos and converting them into affordable housing. But I have two criticisms here. One, if a developer builds units that the market won't buy, why are we responsible for helping absorb those losses? Like, is this housing policy or is this just a bailout? And you tell me, does this housing announcement address the root problem? My second criticism is that this is not going to fix anything. It's not the way to solve the housing crisis. The way to solve the housing crisis is twofold. You need to get out of the way so that people can build houses, and you need to reduce immigration. Those are two things that need to go together in order to get on the right path to solving the housing crisis. After years of federal housing initiatives, home prices and rents remain out of reach for many Canadians. Government continue to dish out taxpayer money for government programs, financing arrangements, and taxpayer-backed incentives while failing to deliver the scale of housing construction needed to make a meaningful difference. Basically, this is a subsidy. If developers need government financing, tax breaks, and public support to make projects viable, if they cannot work on their own, I don't think that we should be subsidizing to bail these developers out. And in the end, does this mean that the government will own your home? At a time when many families are struggling with housing costs, the real test isn't the size of the announcement. It's whether Canadians can afford a home 5 years from now. Do you think that this will do anything at all to relieve the housing crisis? Probably not. Anyways, that should be all for today, everybody. I hope that you like this episode. If you do, subscribe, share with somebody who you think might benefit from listening to this. Have an amazing weekend, and I will see you all next time. Bye!